Welcome to our podcast. This is Friends on Fire.
I'm Mike. I'm a lifelong devotee of financial independence. I even wrote a book about it.
And I'm Maggie, a newer convert, but just as passionate, especially on the intersection of minimalism and financial independence.
We're one and the same.
We are two like-minded friends who believe that talking about money with your friends and family opens the door to financial well-being.
The Friends on Fire podcast is about dispelling myths, building financial acumen, and sharing your financial independence journey with the people you care about.
This is Friends on Fire. Hey, Maggie.
Hey, Mike.
How's it going?
Good. I'm excited for today's discussion.
Me too. We are so close to 2021 being over. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, I can taste 2022, or
I know.
smell it. It's just like, it's right there.
Yeah, I am actually very excited for 2022 because I just signed up for my deferred compensation elections, and it's weird, but I can't wait to basically not get a paycheck. Paid. Yeah.
I also just signed up. I haven't even told you this yet because we were talking about it yesterday when it opened. I just also signed up, and I feel the same way because, I went big that one year you convinced me to, which was the year that the world fell out from under itself.
Yeah. Then you got cold feet.
And then I got cold feet, went back to the minimum this year. And next year I'm going back to the maximum. And I agree. I cannot wait to not get paid again and defer my income to a time when I'm in a lower tax bracket.
I was talking to a friend of mine about this because she was asking me some questions. She described it as, you always love a good scheme. And and this definitely feels like some sort of financial scheme. It's sort of a game that you can take advantage of to get the highest returns that other people aren't thinking about. That's why I like it so much.
Yes. And also the word scheme sometimes has negative connotations, but it shouldn't. And in other cultures, actually, in countries, that word is used a little bit more descriptively, like not in a negative way.
Right.
Like not pyramid scheme. Like I don't love a good pyramid scheme. I love a good functioning tax beneficial scheme.
Right. This is a company benefit and they are allowing me to max out my salary and I'm going to do it.
Love it. Okay.
So we are going to be talking about our end of year checklist recommendations. And we're going to go back to what we started this year on, where we created an Excel sheet for everybody, and it's on our Etsy store for $3. You
can also go to our website and get access to it for free.
Oh, really?
As a reminder. Yeah.
Oh, look at us being so generous.
Yeah, you sign up for an email, you sign up for an email, but then we won't ever email you because we've sent one email. Yeah, someday when we have time, we might email you. But you can get it for free on our website. We'll put it in the show notes.
So we created this checklist to help people kind of go through all of the fairly mundane tasks and reminders needed to create a more financially fit year. And this is not like a one-time thing though. So it's important you should be looking through this every month, honestly. But at the end of the year, there's also a good opportunity to tackle some of these items that may have slipped through the cracks. And so it's a good opportunity for us to go through and recap.
Yeah. And Mike, I am selfishly using this as my own personal reminders. So as we go through this, I'm also going to remind myself, have I done this? Have I done this? And make my own little to-do list. So I encourage all of our listeners to do the same, get out a pen and paper, open your notepad app on your phone, whatever you use, and make a little to-do list. One thing I love about the end of time periods, whether it's the month, the year, or whatever, is it gives you a little bit of extra momentum and motivation to kind of get things done before a deadline. So think of the end of the year as your deadline, because it literally is a deadline on many of these things. It's a government deadline. It's real. It's not imposed by your Friends on Fire. It's a true legal, non-negotiable deadline.
So what you're saying is, imagine it's a deadline, but it's also a real deadline. So don't mess around with it.
Pretend it's a deadline, but it is also a deadline.
All right. I think that's a helpful reminder.
Yeah. And then not to to incentivize you to stay for the end, we will also wrap up by going through our own 2021 financial goals and a couple of our personal goals we set. Because we haven't really kept up with doing quarterly check-ins on the podcast. I'm not sure that people love those anyways. So we thought we'd just hit a quick end of year recap for you guys too.
All right. Let's kick it off, Maggie.
Okay. So first off, we are not going to hit every item on the 2021 financial checklist. It's a great checklist. It's got a lot of good reminders in it around kind of getting your finances organized. I'd encourage you to use it for 2022. but we're not going to hit the items that were kind of things that you ideally would have done at the beginning of the year. We're really going to focus on the reminders of things that are helpful to double check and make sure you've done at the end of the year. So there's a whole section on financial management and organization of like setting up your goals for the year, quarterly review of annual goals progress, updating your expense tracker, updating your net worth chart, and celebrating your wins in progress. I just recapped them there. That's the extent of that discussion. I think we should switch over to the retirement reminders, Mike.
All right. So for retirement savings plan, there is an IRS limit. So like imagine a limit for your contributions, but then it's also a real limit set by the government. So if you have a 401k or 403b, this year's contribution limit, if you're under age 50, is $19,500. It goes up $1,000 next year, but make sure that you are maxing that out if you are able to. And you should be able to do some simple calculations to figure out how much you've contributed and how much you have left up to this max. Go into your employer system and go make that change now. You should also max out a Roth IRA at $6,000 if you are eligible. And even though you have a little bit longer into next year to do that, you should just focus on doing it in this calendar year.
Yeah. And if you do plan on doing a backdoor Roth IRA conversion, because I'm not eligible for Roth IRA, so I put $6,000 into my IRA and then I do a backdoor conversion, you also need to make sure that you take care of that. And I think, Mike, on the 401k, just for those that are maybe less familiar with doing this, if you're trying to max it out, when you were talking about kind of adjusting the pieces and just some simple math. So I will literally go into my paycheck stub and whatever the PDF file that you download.
You still get a paycheck stub?
I used to get a stub back in the day. And I will look at how much I've put in year to date to my 401k. I will do some quick math on how many pay periods are left through the end of the year and figure out what percentage I need to change it to. And then I'll go change my percentage. I just want to walk through that for people who are kind of questioning, like, well, how do I, map towards that? Because at the beginning of the year, sometimes I'll do a loose estimate of like, oh, I need to put X percent in to, reach my max throughout the year, which is literally taking the limit of 19,500 and dividing it by the number of pay periods. Mm-hmm. And that likely is your percentage. But again, sometimes, things change throughout the year. Sometimes you may have some, something that makes it kind of a variable amount coming out.
And like we remind people with a bunch of different savings vehicles, don't worry too much about this. If you're a little bit under or a little bit over, you are still almost at the maximum the IRS is going to give you. That's a huge accomplishment. And so don't lose too much sleep if you're $200 over or under.
I agree, though I will admit that I do sit there and figure out the exact amount I need to get it at to get my full 19,500 benefit, because it is lowering my taxable income.
Next item on our list is going to be related to your savings and investments. Our checklist is about making sure that your money is invested, make sure that you have an emergency fund, and that you are putting money into other accounts like a 529. You should be constantly revisiting this. It's not a one and done thing, but go check your emergency fund. Does it still have the amount of money that you think it does? Go check your brokerage accounts and retirement accounts, and are they invested in line with your personal strategy? So just go and evaluate all of the money that's sitting around and make some changes at the end of the year.
And Mike, you might actually realize that you've actually now got more than you'd like in your emergency fund, right? Which is good news, but you might say, I want to take it out of cash and make sure that I have an investment plan, maybe not putting it all into the market. Like right now, the market's, doing pretty well. So it might be that you know in your head, hey, I've got, an extra $5,000 that I want to try to put into index funds over the course of the next few months.
Yeah, great point.
College savings is another one to remind people about. So if you are putting money into a 529 plan and you want the state tax, if you're using your state's tax, your state's 529 plan, and you want the tax benefits associated with that, there's a limit that each state's plan has of what you can contribute and what is deductible from your taxes. And so if you're trying to max that out, like I think in Georgia, it's about $2,000.
Yeah, I think that's right.
If you're trying to max that out or do any sort of mega funding, which we have a whole episode on, you can make sure that you do that before the end of the year. Mike, I think the other thing to look at is, this is a good time at the end of the year to look at any of your debt. And so we have a section in the checklist all around debt and, making sure that you have a plan and goals for how you're going to pay off your debt, making extra principal payments towards credit cards, student loans, mortgage, et cetera. This is just a good time to see how you have performed against your goals of paying off debt, right? And again, seeing where you're at with that may motivate you to do more and to get more aggressive with it in the last month or so of the year. But really just to be eyes wide open of wherever you are and to make sure that you have a plan for that, and especially a plan going into 2022 of how you're going to continue to pay that off.
And you can use this opportunity as a little bit of inspiration by looking back and seeing how much debt you have actually paid off for your different accounts. You might feel pretty inspired to do even better in 2022.
Yeah, that's why I know we harp on this all the time, so we haven't on this episode, but that's why tracking your net worth is so important, because if you have paid off debt, you will likely start to see the benefits of that. Again, mainly in the interest savings and other things.
Moving on to our next category, employee benefits. So we did an episode recently about signing up for your benefits, primarily medical. And for most companies, I think the period is ending or is over. Now, it's different for every company, and so maybe your company still has open enrollment through the end of the year, maybe not. But there are going to be different types of benefits that you can modify throughout the year, and you should be looking at those and taking advantage of any opportunities. One big thing that comes to mind would be for dependent care, FSAs, and flex spending accounts for medical expenses, making sure that you have a plan to use those funds, because unlike a health savings account, an HSA, which rolls over every year, a dependent care FSA and an FSA is a use it or lose it account. And so even though you have time into 2022 for the first couple of months to spend it, you should have a plan now. And at the very end of the year, first week in January at the latest, you should be putting in your claims and getting this money back.
I think the reminders in this area for end of year things, because it's use it or use it, this category, and then also maxing out 401ks, 403bs, and IRA limits, to me are kind of the biggest end of year financial reminders that you want to make sure you don't miss out on. And again, not everyone can necessarily afford to max out 401k or do an IRA, but many people, again, have money in those FSA, dependent care accounts, et cetera. And they are use it or lose it. And it's quite sad to lose it. And I will go to great lengths to find things to do. I mean, you can go get acupuncture. You can buy, read the fine print. I mean, you can buy like first aid kits, Band-Aids, certain types of medicine. They all have kind of different rules. But remember, even though you can file things, most of them have like filing deadlines into 2022. The expenses have to actually have happened in 2021. So you're going to need to spend the money this year. If you realize you have $200 left, I've had years, it was a long time ago before I had kids with more medical bills, but where I would like go to Target and buy, a 5-year supply of Band-Aids and different things. So
just to be clear though, for everybody listening, buying 5 years worth of Band-Aids may not be the most effective use of money, but if you're going to lose it,
yes, well,
you could find worse.
Yeah. And to think there are, I believe there's stuff like, prenatal vitamins. There's all sorts of different things that qualify for those. And so you can be very thoughtful. Certain ones, like certain types of massages qualify. So, I mean, you could really get creative and find something that is of value to you if you don't have medical expenses. The other thing I would say that actually is in the medical category, and this isn't on our checklist, but I was just reminded of this by my dentist, actually. Think about your deductibles that you've either already hit, different maxes. Like in dental plans, there's a max benefit that you get each year. And I had already hit my max. And so she was like, hey, if you just come back in a month and get your mouth guard in 2022, it'll be paid for half of it by your insurance company. If you do it today, you're going to have to pay full price. And I was like, cool, thanks for the heads up. I'll be making an appointment in January. So there's that with maxes, but then also with your deductibles. If you happen to have already hit a medical deductible because of something that you had to deal with this year, I would go to great lengths to make sure you can squeeze in any other things you need to take care of that you can perhaps be proactive about this year, because they're hitting in a time when you've already maxed your deductible, reached your deductible. And you can definitely get kind of strategic on how you handle those medical expenses efficiently as possible. So we also have, a whole section on credit management, around freezing your credit, around wills and estate planning. and a few other things. And so we're not going to go into those again because they're not necessarily critical end of year reminders. But those are in the checklist if you want to check it out for being proactive about your 2022 financial planning. There's one other employee benefits reminder, Mike. Do you know what it is?
No.
Hold on. I'm going to remind you with a screen.
Oh.
It's these things. I just showed him my phone. I have the Virgin Pulse app up, which is the company that our company uses. But we have a general reminder in our checklist that says, claim any other financial benefits that the company offers before the deadline. One of them is that the other reminder is take advantage of programs that earn extra FSA/HSA dollars, which is what this program is. So we have a program, and a lot of big companies have it as part of their benefits package, where you have to do all these like silly, I say silly because I'm a naturally pretty healthy, active person. It's not silly if it actually is motivating you to do stuff, which is what there must be research that says it does. But for me, I'm like having to go in and say that I'm going to like commit to being, like a fitness challenge, and then I'm going to, work out for 7 days in a row or something. And you have to like sign up for all these little challenges and like submit that you got a physical this year and all of these different things. And you earn these points. It's like gamifying your health, basically. And I always sort of find it to be a chore where I'm like, okay, I got to like go in here and play this game to earn my $250. I'm not sure if it's worth it, but do you play this game?
When it's easy. Sometimes it's a lot of work for very little reward. So I hit the high impact ones and then forget about the rest.
This year feels harder than last year. Like
Definitely.
I'm not seeing something's like going on where I'm like, I'm doing all this stuff and I'm not earning any points.
Cut back. It's a cost cutting exercise.
Yeah. It might be. I've actually just recently given up on it, to your point of I'm not sure the juice is worth the squeeze.
So a couple more things to focus on at the end of the year. One is going to be cutting expenses. And now we highlighted at the very beginning how you should be revisiting your expense tracking, but looking at your full year expenses and where you can be smart at the end of the year. And we talked about some of the like Black Friday and holiday shopping areas, but this is a good opportunity to remind yourself about your financial goals and where you can cut expenses. But it's also about preparing yourself for 2022 goals and where you want to tackle some of the areas of perhaps weakness in your spending. And so it's a great opportunity to look at the year in whole and make decisions for the future.
I don't really, in fairness, do much at the end of the year regarding taxes. Mike, what do you do?
I do most of it in the spring, but I think there's one thing that you could be focusing on now, and that's going to be the sale of stocks or other investments.
This is over my head, so just a heads up, I'm going to tune out, but keep going.
Well, maybe you should pay attention then. I will try to simplify it as much as possible.
Point.
Yeah.
If it is over,
Mike, this is too hard. I'm just not going to listen.
This is usually when I tune out, but perhaps this is actually when I should tune in.
So when you sell an investment, that is what triggers the period in which you pay capital gains. Now, there are short-term capital gains, which are going to be at your ordinary income tax bracket, so very high taxes, and long-term capital gains, stuff held for over a year. That's at a very low tax rate. And so if you want to sell something that you've made money on before the end of the year, note that you will have to pay taxes for it next spring. But if you have lost money on something and you're like, this is a dog, I need to get rid of it, you can use that sale and that loss to offset some of your other gains. So this is called tax loss harvesting. And it is not as complicated as it might sound, Maggie. I see it in your face. You're about to doze off.
No, I'm familiar with what tax loss. I can't even say it. Tax loss harvesting is.
So I will just say this. If you have an investment that you don't like, you don't think is going to perform well in the future, and you've lost money on it, you don't need to hold on to it because you feel bad. You can just sell it, and there is a benefit to selling it at a loss. It will offset some of your other gains. If you want more information, I would encourage you to Google it. There's tons of information out there.
And Wealthfront does tax loss reharvesting for me, which is nice. Did I say reharvesting? Or is it
I'm not sure what reharvesting is.
Well, that's what you do tax loss harvesting. I reharvest it later.
You
I reharvest multiple times to get more from my land.
Yeah. That sounds like tax fraud to me.
It does. Just kidding. I do not reharvest. I just don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. The other thing that's related to taxes, and is actually the last thing on our list, is under the giving and giving away category. So charitable giving. We just did an episode on this a couple weeks ago with our good buddy Joel O'Leary. And this is a good time of year to make some final charitable gifts to organizations that you care about and that matter to you. So just a reminder on that front also.
All right, Maggie. So that was a great checklist. I hope it was helpful for people just to be reminded about what they should be doing at the end of the year. Let's go through some of our 2021 goals and give a brief recap about how we're doing.
Cool. We always have this back and forth of like, are we going to do each goal together?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's do each one together.
Okay. I will go first because I can see that I am underperforming all of your goals.
Ladies first. Go ahead.
We had a 15% net worth growth, which is my goal every single year in recent memory, because
and full disclosure, I don't know what my goal is, so I just sometimes copy your goals. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a nice
and then
goal.
You crush it. And so this you need to pick a new goal next year, one that's good for you. But the reason you pick a percentage goal is because a percentage on a higher number every single year stretches the goal for you, and so it's constantly growing. So 15% net worth growth. I am at 16.4% at the end of October.
Well done.
Thank you.
I am at 20.46%.
Yeah. Thank you for giving 2 decimal points there. We want to be real accurate as you kill me on this.
Yes. Wanted credit in case you were at 20.43. I just wanted to note that I'm at 20.46.
All right. That's fair.
Okay.
All right. Congratulations. That's really awesome.
Thanks. And I don't know why you said I beat you at all these, because I think the next one you're about to beat me.
Nope. My next goal,
you're right.
15% annual spending reduction. This is just, I'm going to be honest. This one I just completely butchered. I am up 18% at the end of October.
Do you care? Like, are you really upset? Do you care about that? Or are they things that you placed value on? And like, I know you got some new hardwood floors that you were excited about that needed to be.
Yes. So there were 2 things that impacted this number. The first was that because schools were still closed in the spring, we had to pay for additional daycare, which I thought was going to be excluded from these numbers. So we ended up paying another $13,000 in daycare on the year, which is a lot. And then we also got new hardwood floors on our second floor, which we have been talking about for a while and just decided to do. We didn't want to put it off because we were going to enjoy it. So this was stuff that like we went into knowing. And even though I didn't hit the goal, it's not like I feel bad about it. I feel bad that I lost the game of having a goal in writing against you and not hitting it. But other than that, the spending feels fine.
Well, your overall spending is still much lower than mine. So my goal was a little bit different than yours. I said outside of travel, I wanted to reduce my annual spending by 5%. And the reason I separated travel is that is a category that I want to spend more on and I'm willing to spend more on. And I don't want to, have any sort of spend less budget against. So overall, my expenses were up about 6%. I only have it through the first 6 months of the year because I've not been doing it monthly. So this is, I know but I'll check in and let you know in January how this is looking for the full year. So it's 6% up, but when I remove travel, my costs are actually down 2%. I still did not meet my goal. So I have spent more on travel than last year, which I anticipated. And, but overall my expenses, are down a little bit, which I feel good about. And I think when I do full year, they'll maybe even be down even more.
So Maggie, I have an idea for you. Because you want to increase your spending in travel, I think what you really mean is you are okay spending more on travel, but you still want to be effective in your spending on travel. And so perhaps we could do a little bit of analysis towards the end of the year. You could evaluate your cost per day of traveling and then see how much it costs you next year per day to travel. And even if you are spending more, on a total basis because you are traveling more days. If you are spending less per day, it means you are maximizing your effectiveness of your money.
That's an interesting stat. And I think it'd be interesting and kind of fun to measure that. Because I was going to say, I got some crazy travel plans next year.
I know, me too.
But it's going to, but on a per day basis, I think I might be able to get it, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. The next couple items that I had, I'll run through together because we don't have an equivalent on your side. But I wanted to take a splurgy weekend trip with my wife. And we never actually did this because we did some really long summer travel, and I ended up taking the month of July off from work. And then we're also going to Germany over Christmas, and we're doing a lot of stuff. So it didn't actually work out, and we didn't have a good opportunity or the desire at this point to go do a splurgy weekend trip. So I didn't hit this goal, but I also don't feel bad about it. We have some great plans for 2022. The next item was that I wanted to buy 2 more rental properties, and we bought one. But then the market just took off, and it doesn't make financial sense right now in the area. We're looking to buy a second, so we've just paused that. But feel good about the one. We've made a lot of money on it so far.
Nice.
All right, what are some of your next ones, Maggie?
Well, my only other one besides our other shared one, which we'll do in a minute, is I really wanted to prioritize my meditation practice getting back on track. And I do a type of meditation called transcendental meditation. TM, and it's a 23-minute session. And I was doing amazing. I had a daily tracker that I keep up in my closet. I was doing really great. And I fell off the wagon somewhere around April or May. I can't remember. I need to go upstairs and get it. But it's to the point, honestly, and I'm sure some people can relate to this, where I fell off the wagon so hard at one point, I didn't even want to look at my tracker anymore. I was just trying to get back on the wagon, and I've kind of had a lot of fits and starts. I leave for vacation tomorrow, and I'm a long vacation. I'm very committed to restarting it when I'm on vacation, because sometimes I just need that kickstart of having a little bit more. This has been a crazy busy year, and those are the times when I actually need meditation the most. But sometimes there's days where I can choose between working out and meditating, and a lot of days I choose working out. So, wah, wah.
Well, good luck.
I'll cheer myself up with our next item, though.
Yeah, next item, read 35 books. And of course, you picked read 36 books as your goal.
Yeah.
I've read 42.
I've read 48.
I don't get it. How can you go through so many books?
Well, I read physical books, and I also listen to audiobooks on Libby.
Yeah, but I do too, and I can't get through as many as you. I
listen to books while doing everything, while washing dishes, while cleaning my house, while going for runs. I'm rarely not ever listening to a podcast or a book.
I am thoroughly impressed by you on this one, Maggie.
Thanks.
You are my inspiration.
Yeah, thank you. I told Mike, I go, next year I want my goal to be to read a book a week. And then I was like, oh, wait, I've met that goal this year. So I have to increase it somehow.
All right. So those were our personal goals. We also had some shared podcast goals. First one wasn't really a stretch goal. Publish 52 episodes a year. And we did that. Which just means
stay on track for our weekly.
And we've been doing that every single Monday. Yeah. Every single Monday without fail, we publish an episode. And it's been great. It might not
be a good episode, but we publish an episode.
That's right. But having a little structure really does help us, because there are certainly some there are some lulls. There are times when we're busy, and we both hold each other accountable to hitting this target. And it's it's not even a question, honestly.
I agree.
We are going to publish an episode on Monday, hell or high water.
Mike and I discussed this privately a lot, but the accountability to each other is what keeps us going on this every week, right? If either one of us had our own podcast, we'd have months where we're just I'm just busy, and I'd put it on the back burner. But I don't feel like that feels like a non-negotiable in my, weekly schedule. So, okay. Our other goal, you set this goal.
Yeah. And you were skeptical.
I was kind of unsure. I was doing the math, and I was like, it could be a little dicey, was to hit 100,000 downloads, which I didn't celebrate on social media, but we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah. We've actually kind of blown past that recently. And so we've been doing quite well. It's ramped up significantly.
Yeah. So thank you to all of you for continually coming back or accidentally coming back. I don't know what brings you back, but thank you so much. We appreciate you.
100,000 downloads is a lot of downloads, and we really appreciate everybody who's tuned in and finds value from this. And our feeling has always been, we give talks at the company all the time, and if 10 people show up or 50 people show up, we will put time into preparing a talk.
It feels like a good use of our time.
It's a good use of our time. And so the fact that we have thousands of people tuning in to listen to one of our shows is incredible. I mean, I'm still I'm blown away that people still enjoy listening to us talk about this stuff.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, Mike knows this, I sometimes will look at the success of another podcast. And while very happy for them, I'm like, oh, they have millions of downloads. But I agree with Mike. I often do that test of, would I show up every week to talk to 50 people? Like, yes. So I definitely would show up every week to talk to a few thousand people. And yeah, it's something that, in case we don't mention enough, we really enjoy doing and get a lot of personal growth and value out of. So thank you for being a part of this journey with us.
So with that, we'll skip our top 3 takeaways because the entire checklist is a giant takeaway. Go through all of it, and they're all important. And hopefully this was helpful, and it'll help you also set some new 2022 goals, which we'll come back and do an episode on in a few weeks.
Okay, well, thank you all for listening. If you have been challenged or inspired by what you have heard, please rate and review the show. And speaking of reviewing the show, part of your 2021 end of year financial responsibilities should be to go give a positive review with a written review, because that's what really helps, to your favorite financial podcast or your, semi-favorite financial podcast, Friends on Fire. We would always appreciate that and love that.
You can also subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you have any thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voicemail or text us at 404-981-3370 or hit us up on Instagram. Thanks, Maggie. Nice work on your goals.
Thanks, Mike. Great work on your goals.
Thank you.
And happy, I was going to say happy 2021. Feels like a pretty happy new year. I'll just say bye.
All right.
Bye, Mike.
Bye, Maggie.